Welcome to the Talk Like a Leader podcast, where we explore the mindset, skill set, and habit set of leadership communication. Using these tips, techniques, and tactics, you'll be able to talk like a leader to build better relationships and get more done. Your host is Guy Harris, who has more than 20 years of combined professional and military experience in consulting, coaching, and training in areas like team and interaction dynamics, communication strategies and tactics, as well as emotional intelligence. Take it away, Guy.
Hi there. Welcome to the Talk Like a Leader podcast. Today, we're going to discuss collaborative problem solving, conversations you have with others that help you arrive at a joint and collaborative solution. And what I've noticed in my journey to become more effective leader, to become more effective communicator, is that the biggest problem with collaborative problem solving is the collaborative part. And it's true that many new leaders become leaders because they know how to get things done pretty much on their own. And this individual ability to solve problems, when you apply it to a team environment, can actually become a weakness when new leaders push strongly for solution that others resist. Now, sadly, I've been that new leader who pushed too strongly, too early in the process. And I found that, well, frankly, it rarely worked. As I started working to become better at collaborative problem solving, I read a book by David Strauss titled How to Make Collaboration Work. And from that book, I learned a really powerful approach for reaching better group decisions. And his basic premise in the book is that collaboration follows 6 basic steps or stages that are fairly predictable across broad ranges of types of people and types of situations. And personally, I figured out how to apply Strauss's strategy by asking 6 questions, both of myself and others, as we work together to solve problems. And frankly, I found the approach works pretty well. Now, here's some of the situations where you might need collaborative problem solving. When you're in a team environment and you're trying to come up with project goals, directions, objectives, steps forward, ways to solve a problem. When you're working with a person on a coaching situation, when you're discussing performance issues or results issues, and you're looking for a solution together that helps both you and the other person move forward. Or even in a conflict situation, you could view conflict as a collaborative problem-solving effort. You can use this sort of approach, and granted, you would modify it a little bit from the way I present it here, and we can talk about that at another time in another episode. For now, though, just consider that when you're working with another person trying to solve a problem, be it a project or a relationship or a performance issue, the 6 questions I'm going to propose here can be very helpful to help you move stepwise through the process to talk like a leader in the collaborative problem-solving process and come to a solution that both of you can feel good about when you're done. Now, if at all possible, I'd suggest using the questions that I'm about to propose in exactly the order that I present them here. It's sometimes true that you'll be engaged in a conversation or you'll be brought into a conversation at a later stage, and you might have to back up a little bit in order to move forward. For the purposes of today's episode, I'm going to present the questions in order as if you start the conversation from a nice clean slate and can move forward in a stepwise fashion to arrive at a joint and collaboratively developed solution. Question number 1, is there a problem? Let's say here's the challenge. I might see a problem with the situation, or you might see a problem with the situation. The other people with whom you're interacting may or may not see a problem. And if they don't, and you start proposing solutions to a problem they don't believe exists, the likelihood that you'll come to a good and collaborative solution for this problem is very low. So question number 1, is there a problem? Do we both agree that there's something about this situation, this process, this result, this relationship, this interaction that needs to change? Is there a problem? The second question is, how do you define the problem? So even if we both agree that there is a problem, and you think the problem is speed, and I think the problem is quality, we're not going to come to the same solution. So even if we agree there is a problem, we then have to agree how we define the problem. That might require some discussion. We might need to discuss our perspectives on the problem rather than solutions of the problem. See, how you solve a problem hinges on how you define it. Back to the idea that if you define it one way and I define it a different way, we will never agree on the solution, because we are effectively trying to solve 2 different problems. So after we decide that there is a problem, we have to discuss the definition of the problem. Now, once we agree on the definition of the problem, we can then move on to the causes for the problem. So we agree that there is a problem. We agree on how to define it. Then we have to discuss, how could this be caused? What are its root causes? So we have to figure out, do we both agree that we define the causes of the problem the same way? Maybe there are pieces of the problem you see that I don't see, and vice versa. Maybe you assign different causes for the problem. I'm going to borrow a typical problem from my past. Say there's a process problem in a nuclear power plant or in a chemical plant, going back to my days as an operating engineer. And maybe I think that the problem is caused by bad raw materials or bad control systems, and you think the problem is caused by poor operator performance. Well, those are two clearly different causes, and we're going to have to come to some agreement on what those likely causes are, or we're not going to be able to move forward together. So the third step in the collaborative problem-solving process is, what are some possible causes for the problem? Now, at this stage, we're not assigning the specific cause. We're really looking for the range of possible causes so that as we scope out potential solutions, you and I are both on the same page about the range of possible things that could be causing the problem. Now, once we've done that, we're going to move on to the fourth stage, which is, what are some different ways we could solve the problem? And each of the proposed solutions probably is going to assume different root causes, or maybe different combinations of the possible root causes. And basically, this is a brainstorming step. We're going to discuss what are different ways we could solve the problem. We're going to get as many possible solutions on the table, 2, 3, 4, 5 possible solutions to the problem. And one of the things to keep in mind as we're working together on this collaborative effort is to realize that many of the types of problems where we need collaborative effort tend to be complex problems. And the unique characteristic of complex problems is that they may have more than one right solution. And the right solution can be defined by what are the main causes and what are the main variables at play, and what are the characteristics of a good solution. So at this point, we're not trying to pick a solution. We're trying to frame the range of solutions, the types of things we could do, so we get every possible idea on the table. So what are some different ways we could solve the problem? And once we've identified a number of possible ways we could solve the problem, we're going to talk about the criteria a successful solution would have to meet in order to be good. So the question is, what would a successful solution look like? Now, as I said, most of the problems we solve using this process can be solved in many different ways, and every situation will have its own set of benefits and drawbacks. What we're going to do at this stage of discussion, we're going to decide what criteria we would use. This is very situationally specific. What I'll do is I'll share one example again from my background. If you look at the world of project management, typically say projects are constrained by three things: time, cost, and quality. And the constraints are that one of those three must be rigidly fixed. It either has to be on time, or has to be on budget, or has to meet a certain quality standard. One of the other two must be relatively fixed, or fixed within a range of acceptable values. So let's say that you have chosen time as your fixed constraint. It must be delivered by a certain time. And you've chosen quality as your relatively fixed constraint. You need to know within what range of quality you're willing to accept the solution. So it has a range of solutions. And then the third of those has to be able to flex to go wherever it needs to go to make the other two work. So in the case of the three constraints I just mentioned, we have to agree, is time, cost, or quality the most significant variable here? That doesn't mean the others don't matter. We just need to decide which one is the fixed or unchanging constraint so that we can know how to decide on the others. If I say it's time and you say it's quality, we're going to have a different solution. So we have to agree, what would a successful solution look like? Now, once we defined that we've agreed that there is a problem, and we've defined the problem the same way, and we've looked at the causes and we agree on what the likely causes are, we scoped out the different ways you could solve the problem, and we've looked at what a successful solution would look like, what are the constraints on the solution, what criteria must it meet. Now we're ready to pick a solution. At that point, we're down to probably one or two of our possible solutions that will meet our criteria for a good solution. And hopefully, by following this process, we've come to a place where we can both agree on the solution with minimal conflict. The next time you're in a collaborative problem-solving effort, remember these 6 questions. Is there a problem? How do we define the problem? What are some possible causes for the problem? What are some different ways we could solve the problem? What would a successful solution look like? And then pick a solution. Use this collaborative problem-solving process, and you will talk like a leader. This has been the Talk Like a Leader podcast. You can listen to this show every week wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm Guy Harris, and thanks for listening.